Good afternoon, friends. It has been such a long time since the last time I've been able to come on here, but it's finally spring. It's April. It's so beautiful. This is my favorite time of the year when it's warm, when it's sunny, but it's not humid and sticky yet. Anyway, I want to come on here and talk about gardening because that's what we do here. If you're new here, my name is Maggie. I make gardening content, and today's video, I just kind of want to get into a little bit how I plan for my garden, and then towards the end of the video, we're going to do a garden tour. Now, getting into how I plan for my garden, because a lot of my friends ask me this, like, okay, how do you know what to plant? When do you plant? How do you plant? And I think, with the how do you plant, I think it's kind of easy to get information about, but kind of when do you plant and what do you plant? That's kind of like where people get stuck. So I want to kind of get into how I think about those two things. Okay, so first things first, what do I plant? Right now it's April. It's kind of the beginning of the season all around the United States and Canada. Some people are still in the snow. I can't even imagine it. I was talking to someone the other day and they were telling me that their son is, I think, in Buffalo, New York, or somewhere in northern New York, and they're still in their 30s. And I was like, couldn't be me. Anyway, if you're watching from northern United States, I'm sending you all the sunshine and the warmth. Anywho, thinking about what to plant, the thing that I always tell people is think about what do you love to eat, number one, and what can you grow in your zone, number two. So let's get into how to know what you can grow and when to grow in your region. A lot of people don't know this, but most states have some sort of agricultural extension that is connected to a university. So for example, here I live in North Carolina. On the University of North Carolina website, they have an agricultural extension. And on that agricultural extension, they have a whole chart. Matter of fact, I'm gonna link it here. For everybody who lives in North Carolina, I'm gonna link it for you. They have an entire chart of what to plant, when to plant by region. So if you live in the mountains of North Carolina, they will tell you this is what you can plant. This is the ideal time to plant it. This is when you can harvest it. If you live in the Piedmont region like I do, and sort of that central area of North Carolina, same thing. This is what you can plant. This is when to plant it. This is when to harvest. If you live out on the coast, same thing. This is what to plant. This is where to plant. This is where to, when you can harvest. Most of you guys know that I lived in Washington State for most of my life. In Washington State, it's Washington State University that has the agricultural extension. If you go on the WSU website, they will give you so much information for home gardeners, what to plant, when to plant, all that kind of information. So whatever state it is you live in, please look at your local agricultural extension. That will give you so much information. It takes all of the guesswork out of everything. We moved to North Carolina, 2.5 years ago now, and this is it's a different zone, it's a different climate. I didn't know how to grow things here. I didn't know how to grow in the heat and the humidity. And the University of North Carolina website helped me a lot to try to figure out, some of these things and what to plant and when to plant and all that kind of stuff. That just takes all the guessing work out of it, right? And all my friends here in North Carolina who are like, oh my goodness, Maggie, how do you even know, what to plant? I'll literally just send them that link and be like, all right, here's all the information in a simple chart. It's fantastic. Now, going back to what to plant, right? The things that you should think about when you're planning your garden, right? There's some people who they think about what kind of garden you want. Maybe you just want a flower garden. Maybe you just are like, I love flowers. I want to create a sanctuary for butterflies and bumblebees and hummingbirds, and I just want a beautiful space. Or maybe you're like me, you're more of a vegetable gardener and you throw flowers in there. Or maybe some people are just really into fruit trees or whatever, right? Think about what you like to eat and then figure out if it can grow in your zone, and then figure out when to plant it in your zone. That's how I think about it. The next thing that I think about when it comes to what I'm gonna plant in my garden is I actually like to, because my garden is how I also save money. Like my garden to some extent is part of my food security. And when I say food security, I don't mean like in the prepper sense. My channel is not a prepper channel. It never will be. There's so many prepper channels out there, and I don't fully buy into their gospel, right? Of like stocking up on 25 years worth of food. That's not what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about food security, I'm really talking about protecting yourself from especially price fluctuations like we've seen in the last year or two. Being able to save money. Like, you guys have seen my channel if you've watched my my garden content from last year. I like to grow a lot of dark leafy greens because I eat a lot of dark leafy greens, and dark leafy greens are expensive. I like to grow things like bell peppers and jalapenos and okra. Those are things that I eat, and those are things that are typically expensive to buy. Maybe not always expensive to buy when they're in season, but they can still be expensive to buy. So I like to plan my garden based on what I like to eat and what are the most expensive things. I like to grow potatoes because I think they're fun, but I don't need to grow potatoes because generally speaking, potatoes are one of the cheaper vegetables. So I do have potatoes in my garden. We're gonna do a garden tour. I have planted my potatoes, but it's not a necessity because I can get a 5 or 10 pound bag of potatoes for a relatively cheap price. But kale is really expensive. So I also like to think about what is the way that I can save the most amount of money when it comes to planning my garden, on top of growing what I like and growing what I think is pretty in the garden and all that kind of stuff. So those are just kind of the steps that I think about whenever I think about what I'm gonna plant in my garden. I'm sorry, I know that was kind of everywhere. I tried to kind of explain it the best I could, and I hope that all of that made sense. Yeah, now it's April and now it's time to start planting. So if you've already started planting, comment down below what you've planted. If you are planning to plant, what are you planting? What are you planning to plant? Have you started any seeds or anything like that? Ooh, back to planning. This year, I'm actually really proud of myself. This year is the first year when I've started most of my own seedlings. Every year I try to start most of my own seedlings, and it doesn't always go the way that I hoped. And I think it's usually because I don't have enough light. I don't have like a good setup in my house to make sure that my seedlings are getting enough light. This year, I think I finally figured it out, and I'm gonna show a clip here of how I started my seedlings inside. Today is the day I put out most of my seedlings in the garden. So I figured that today would be a great way to kind of show you what I started and what I'm planting. In previous years, I would try to start stuff. Some things I would be successful at. Some things I would just end up going to the garden store and buying starts, which is just fine. That's something that was new this year, and I'm very proud of myself that I was able to do that. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into this garden tour. This video is already getting pretty long. So here is the April. Can you imagine it's already April? April 2024 garden tour. Okay, so starting from right here, this is how the garden is looking like. Let's start from this bed right here. All of these are beet starts. So these did start inside, which is, it's generally not recommended, but I wanted to try it. And I transplanted them. I transplanted these last week, and they've established themselves very well, been watering every day, and they're doing great. Over on this side is where I planted my sweet potatoes this year. Now these I just transplanted this morning, so they're looking a little droopy. It's been a very hot and sunny day today, But after watering them for several days, they'll eventually establish themselves and grow stronger. Over on this side, I have, this is chard. These I also started inside probably about a month, maybe a month and a half ago. And I transplanted these in the garden last week. This is my garlic bed. These I planted back in December, either December or late November, somewhere, probably December. I have a tutorial on my channel from probably 3 or 4 years ago about how to plant garlic. So I'm going to go ahead and link that and you can watch it. That was from back when we were living in Washington State, but I did the same method here. And as you can see, they've grown. They're really pretty and nice and green. And I'm probably going to go ahead and harvest these in June. So here is the garlic. And then over on this side, I transplanted, these are my cucumbers all over on this side. I plan to trellis them up onto this trellis. And then I have 2 tomato plants, which were left over from that bed right there. And then all the rest of this is okra. I planted a lot of okra this year because last year was my first year growing okra, and I was so surprised at how easy it was to grow and how prolific the plants were. So this year I decided to grow more okra. I think last year I only had like 3 okra plants. This year I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 okra plants. So I'm very excited about having that much okra. On this side we have tomatoes. These are tomatoes that I started from seed indoors. I actually transplanted these last night. So they're still establishing themselves in the garden. And over on this side is the potatoes I was telling you about. These are some old potatoes that we had in the pantry that sprouted. I wasn't planning on planting any potatoes, but we had so many overgrown potatoes in the house because we went on vacation and then we came back and the potatoes were like really sprouted. And I was like, no, we're not gonna eat them, we're gonna plant them. So those are these potatoes. This bed and that bed over there are potatoes. And moving on over on this side, I planted some herbs. This is thyme. And then me and my daughter broadcast a whole bunch of wildflower seeds in here. So hopefully they grow because my daughter really wanted a wildflower garden. Been begging me for like over a year now. She's like, Mommy, I really, really want a flower garden. I want my own garden. So that space is her space. I bought a wildflower perennial packet mix from the store, and we just broadcast that like either yesterday or the day before. I don't remember, but hopefully we'll have like a really nice show of flowers later on in the season. Over on this side now, this is a new extension in the garden. This was here last year. Oh, I forgot to say, I just put this here to separate where the wildflowers were gonna go. And this is my kale. These are kale starts that I just transplanted either yesterday or the day before. And those I started indoors. Oh, I forgot to talk about this bed right here. This is our kale that I actually bought from these starts I got from the garden store. I actually just had my first harvest from these, I believe it was yesterday. And here I planted some zinnias, which are just starting. So hopefully we'll have some beautiful flowers coming in the middle of summer. Okay, so continuing on, in these growing pots, I have random things. So in here I have some flower seeds. I think they're the black-eyed Susans. My daughter got seeds of these at church and she really wanted to plant them. So we planted them there. Over here I have cilantro, which you can see has already began to start. And over here I planted cosmos, which have not yet started. Here, this whole section, let's start on this side. So all of these are bell peppers. These are all bell peppers that I started indoors probably about 8 weeks ago. And they've been sitting outside most days. Decided to put them out in the garden today because I believe and I hope and I pray we just experienced our last frost. I'll be gone for 3 weeks, so I will not be here to be able to transplant them at a later date. And also they're too big for their little containers. So I decided to take a leap of faith and just go ahead and put them in the garden. So all of these are bell peppers. I have quite a few bell pepper plants. And here are ground cherries. I am so excited to have ground cherries. This is my first year growing them. And I'm gonna put a picture of what they look like. But I'm really excited. These are also seeds that I started indoors. And over here, I have some butternut squash that are seeds that I started indoors. And these are kabocha pumpkins, which have also been started indoors and transplanted last night. In this bucket, I have more cosmos, which have not yet sprouted. And here are some eggplant starts, which are just now starting to sprout. So that's how the garden is looking like in April of 2026. I'm so excited to see how things are gonna go. I'm really, really happy this year just because of how many seeds I was able to start and to start by myself. And yeah, I still do plan to go buy a few more seedlings from the store. I tried to start my own basil. It didn't start. I think my seeds are old or something. So I am going to go and buy some basil and kind of interplant, you know, with the tomatoes, with the bell pepper, with all of that, just to pest control. They say that basil is a pest deterrent. I'm not quite sure how true that is, because last year I did have a lot of basil in my garden and I also had a lot of pests. However, I like to plant a lot of basil because I love basil. It's just one of my favorite herbs. And secondly, I love it because once it starts to flower, oh my goodness, the butterflies, the bumblebees, all of them, they just love the basil flowers. So I like to keep it around, at least for those two reasons. And maybe, you know, maybe it does repel some pests, I'm not sure. But yes, that's the next thing that I will go and buy. But anyway, that's how the garden is looking like right now in April 2026. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you for taking your time to watch this video. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more garden content, and please tell me what you're planning to grow. I wish you all a happy April, and I'll be seeing you guys soon. Goodbye.